Hi everyone, I'm Norm, your community liaison for Species at Risk. There are hundreds of thousands of insects throughout the world, and one of the most iconic is the monarch butterfly. At the very least, here in Manitoba, out of all of the dozens of butterflies we have, the monarch is the one that most of us can point out. They are an international conservation symbol, and their migration is one of the world's great events. We're lucky here in the tall grass prairie natural area that throughout the summer they're quite a regular sight. Now on this episode, follow me as we get to witness the entire life cycle of the monarch butterfly, starting from the very beginning.
So the very first part of this whole life cycle of monarch butterfly is, of course, started with the mating process. So not something you see every day, but hopefully you can see the two monarchs here. So here's something I wasn't exactly expecting to see. We have monarch, and it looks like she's laying her eggs on this patch of milkweed here. The first stage of the monarch life cycle is, of course, the egg. So here you can see towards the middle of this milkweed plant, on the underside of the leaf, a little white dot. That is a single egg. That's the way the female lays them. Just one by itself. She can lay a few hundred of these, but generally in different areas. So we have a freshly hatched monarch caterpillar here. Hopefully you guys can see that. And I know it's freshly hatched because of the size, as well as the fact that I've been checking these plants pretty regularly since I found the eggs just a couple days ago. What's interesting about the new caterpillars is the first thing they'll do is actually eat the egg casing that they were born out of. And from that point on, the only thing the caterpillar will eat is the milkweed plant itself until it gets to its next stage of life, the chrysalis. So, as you guys can see, the caterpillars have started to grow quite a bit in the last 2 weeks. Caterpillar stage usually takes 2 to 3 weeks. So a lot longer than that 2 to 4 days of the egg stage. Now what's interesting about this little group of milkweed that we have here is we have a few dozen of these caterpillar, and they're all different sizes. So you can see this one over here, it's a little bit smaller. But what's one thing that is all in common is that these caterpillars all have that white, yellow, and black striping. In the animal kingdom, bright colors usually serve as a warning for potential predators. So by eating this slightly toxic milkweed plant solely, the monarch caterpillars then become unpalatable themselves. So potential predators like birds learn pretty early in their lives that if they eat these guys, they're probably going to end up throwing them up right away. Alright, so here we have what we call a caterpillar that's going into its J phase. Sort of looks like a J, that's why it gets that name. And that's the first sign that we're going to be leaving the larval stage and starting the pupa or chrysalis phase. Here is day 1 of the chrysalis phase. Day 4 of the chrysalis phase. So we are a week into the chrysalis phase. Day 11 of the chrysalis phase. This is day 13 of the chrysalis phase. You can see it's starting to get quite dark, and that is a sign that the adult should be emerging pretty soon. Our monarch chrysalis that we've been following the last nearly 2 weeks has emerged finally to an adult. So here it is. And this would only be maybe 2 hours old since I last checked. Now it's just drying out its wings and then it'll be off. And then it will continue the circle. To follow the monarch butterflies going through their complete life cycle in this very patch of milkweed this summer was a pretty interesting hobby for me. Now I just thought I would show you some pictures of the adult. A little bit easier to point out some details compared to showing a flying butterfly. Okay, so this is a male monarch butterfly, and we can tell because it has these black patches which are called a sex patch. The female does not have it. So they're actually fairly easy to tell the sex of. They're bright orange and have that black vein through them with white dots throughout the edge. So most of the time folks see this butterfly and assume that they are monarch, but sometimes you can be mistaken because here in Manitoba we have another butterfly that looks quite similar, and it's called the viceroy. So the viceroy almost looks identical to the monarch. Big thing to note is that sort of vertical black vein on the wing. So now you should have an idea about which one is a monarch and which one is the sort of imposter, the viceroy. The migration of the monarch butterfly is one of the world's great phenomena. So here in Manitoba, we have the eastern population of monarchs. So where they overwinter is in central Mexico's Oyamel fir forest. They spend 8 or 9 months of the year there. In the spring, they start their migration, breeding along the way, and their offspring, their generations, will slowly make their way up here to Manitoba, where that cycle continues, and finally that last Manitoban generation makes its way all the way back to central Mexico by itself. So some of these adults only last a few weeks, whereas the overwinter or the last Manitoba emergence lasts 8 to 9 months. It's during that long migration where the monarch butterfly can come under threat from things like predators and especially variable climate. So strong winds, hailstorms, unseasonable frosts, all sorts of things like that. Maybe the biggest threat though is actually where the eastern population overwinters. That Oyamel fir forest, central Mexico, holds 99% of our eastern population. So all it would take is one unfortunate disaster to go through there and the population would take a major hit. And that's really the biggest reason why the monarch butterfly is considered a species at risk. I could talk on a lot longer about the monarch butterfly, but that's all the time we have on today's episode.
Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.